All right, today we're diving into a scientific report that details one of the most unusual experiments I think I've ever come across. It's got everything. Human blood, photographs, and this really weird phenomenon the researchers are calling action at a distance.
So let's just get right to the heart of it with this wild question. Can a simple photograph of you actually be used to change your blood from miles and miles away? I know, it sounds like something straight out of science fiction, but that's the core idea behind the report we are breaking down today.
So the report itself is called the Quantum Blood Study. It was actually commissioned by a US company called Leela Quantum Tech, and the research itself was done over in Austria by an organization called IFVBSA. That's a bit of a mouthful. It stands for the International Association for Bioenergetic System Analysis.
Okay, so the whole point of the study was to test a very specific device using something called live blood analysis. But what really makes you look twice here is the design. The researchers say it wasn't just double-blind, but also, and this is a term we're definitely going to come back to, quantum entangled.
Now, before we get any deeper, what exactly is this technique they used? Dark field microscopy isn't like a standard blood test you get at the doctor's office. Think of it more like a live video feed of your blood. Seriously. They take a fresh drop, stick it under a special microscope, and they can watch exactly how your cells are behaving, moving, and clumping together, all in real time.
So, what was this whole experiment actually testing? Let's take a look at the device that's right at the center of this entire study.
And here it is. It's called the Leela Infinity Bloc. And according to the report we're looking at, this whole elaborate experiment was designed for one reason: to measure what effect, if any, this little box has on the human body.
So how's it supposed to work? Well, the report includes a description right from the client, who calls it a quantum energy generator that creates a concentrated quantum energy space. We're quoting directly from the source material here, so that's their language, not ours.
And the list of what this thing supposedly does is, well, it's a lot. According to the report, it's purported to do everything from neutralizing Wi-Fi signals and other so-called negative frequencies to charging any object you place inside of it with quantum energy. Okay, so we've got the device and we've got the analysis method, but now we get to the really strange part of this study: how they actually set the whole thing up.
Get this, the test subjects, they were at the Research Institute. The Infinity Bloc device, however, was about 8 kilometers away. That's about 5 miles. And this is the absolute key. There was zero direct physical contact between the people and the device. None.
So check out how they actually did this, step by step. First, they take a baseline, or before, blood sample. Then they snap a photo of the person. That photo gets physically driven the 8 kilometers to the other location, where it's placed inside the block for just 15 minutes. And then right after that 15 minutes is up, they take a second after blood sample from the subject who's still back at the lab.
Now, to make sure this wasn't all in their heads, a placebo effect, this study was double-blind. The subjects knew they were going to have blood drawn a few times, but they had absolutely no idea when their specific photograph was being put in the device. They were completely in the dark about the timing.
So that's the setup. A person's photo is put in a device 5 miles away for 15 minutes. The big question is, could that possibly do anything to their actual blood? Well, let's see what the researchers said they saw.
And wow, take a look at this. You can see the results with your own eyes. On the left, you've got a before sample from one of the subjects. And on the right, that's their blood just after that 15-minute remote exposure using their photo. The visual difference is pretty incredible.
The researchers describe that before state as having strong agglutination. That's just the technical term for the red blood cells being all clumped and stuck together. But in the after sample, they reported that this clumping was, and I'm quoting them directly here, completely abolished.
And the list of improvements didn't stop there. The report says the once stiff blood cells became very active and were moving freely, and that the blood flow was no longer restricted. The researchers actually concluded that this suggested a harmonization of stress in the body.
So what are we supposed to make of all this? Let's just take a step back for a second and quickly summarize what this report is actually claiming to have found. Okay, so in a nutshell, the report claims that a device described as a quantum energy generator, using nothing but a photograph from 8 kilometers away, produced a really dramatic and positive change in a person's live blood cells.
And the researchers themselves? They were clearly impressed with their own work.
They state right in the report that their study's design creates new standards in the field of clinical medical research because it includes what they call modern quantum physical elements.
And that really brings us to our final thought here. We've just explained what's in this pretty wild report, from the device to the bizarre method to the startling results. Now, we're not here to validate it, just to explore what it says. And it leaves us with a really provocative question to ponder. If something like a photograph really can act as a physical link to a person across a huge distance, what does that suggest about the very nature of reality and connection itself?